And sorry for those of you who are just joining us, I need to go back a screen so that those who are just watching the recording can see. This is the Essential Training site. Please get logged into this site. You do need to be on a touchscreen device that is full screen. I'm going to give everybody just a minute to review these general scoring rules because this is what you need to remember. Let's look at how the scoring works. So that bottom bar, the pill bar, is used for scoring. So as you tap or touch in that bar, you will see an upper bar appear, which reflects the scoring. Green means correct, red means incorrect. Blank means the student skipped it. Whenever there is a specific prompt that the assessment needs you to know, it will appear in a black bar at the top of the screen. So for example, the discontinue rule will appear at the top of the screen. It will prompt you to discontinue the assessment based on how the student scored and that they didn't get any correct answers after so many items. It will allow you to continue scoring, but at the end, it will not provide a final score report. So it is important to pay attention. This is for all of the assessments right now and just a general administration. The wait rule will also appear in a black box at the top of the screen. When 3 seconds have passed without you scoring anything, the system will prompt you to say a letter or a sound or a word, and then you would do so and score the item as incorrect. So you can see in this example, it's telling you to say the letter K for letter naming fluency. The stop screen will also appear at the end of 1 minute. You will say stop. You cannot score any additional items. You have about 1 second to just score that last item. You can go back and correct any mistakes that you made. You will click next when everything is correct on the page. There is no yellow flashing screen. The timer does turn red at that 5-second mark, and then it flashes with every second as it counts down. But it is important that you stop administering, especially for students who are very fluent in, say, nonsense word fluency or oral reading fluency, so that they don't receive additional points that they really should not get. Immediately after testing, it's going to ask you to indicate if any accommodations were used. For the accommodations, you would select if they used a marker ruler, filter or lighting adjustment, assistive hearing devices, or large print, or braille. The other is really only intended for math and should not be used anytime for a language arts reading assessment for Acadiance reading. If you have a student who does an alternate location or has breaks, you would not even indicate that as an accommodation that was used for the student. They're really looking at accommodations that are utilized within the actual test itself. If the student had used Braille, you would indicate that. And then we do not allow assessment directions to be given in a home language, so that should never be indicated. You will then mark any patterns of response that are not necessarily captured. That could be students adding additional sounds, inserting sounds. Inserted sounds are ignored most of the time, so you would not necessarily capture that. And then you would put any notes into the system about specific information and then click done. So this is actually done after every single assessment. So you will get lots of practice today. For today, you will select no for accommodations used on every assessment that we practice with today. Then you will see the results page. It will show you the student's score and how you scored the student. And in the upper right corner, you will click return to the training page to go back to where we will select the next assessment measure. Let's go into letter naming fluency. Deborah, you asked if you would be getting access to these slides. I am sharing slides with assessment directors to give them the opportunity to decide how they want to share out the slides with other people. I will also be creating a Canvas course in July that will have additional recordings that people can go in and just practice. And it's not going to really have rules with it. It's just going to be additional practice. So reach out to your assessment director at your district or charter school for access. So for letter naming fluency, for correct letters, you're going to touch or swipe beneath each letter named correctly. You'll see that a green check mark appears to indicate that that letter is correct. If it is incorrect, you touch the letter itself, and then a red X will appear. And if the letter is skipped, you're just going to leave it blank. If you're self-correcting, touch that X, the red X, and then it will change to a green check mark. If you need to change a letter from correct, so it's a green check mark, then you're going to touch the letter and it will change it to being incorrect. So touching the letter makes something wrong. If you need to change a response from scored to blank, so you accidentally scored it, but the student really skipped the item, touch the green check and it will turn to blank. So I'm going to review. This is the case for this measure. No, go back. But I want you to just try and get in your head as good as possible. How do I change things, correct things? So if you need to do a self-correction of the incorrect item, touch the red X and it will change to correct. If you have something marked correct and you need to change it to incorrect, touch the letter and it will be incorrect. If you need to change it from scored to blank, touch the green check and it will change to blank. If a student skips a row, you simply go on to the next row and continue scoring. Okay, this is just a quick example of just what it looks like. There is no audio in the video. It's just showing you what does the scoring look like on the actual system. Quickly, if you're with somebody else, you can discuss this with a partner. If not, just review for yourself. What do you, the answers to these questions, and then we will go over them briefly. If the letter is incorrect, touch the letter. That will change it to red. When a letter is correct, you're going to swipe or touch within the bottom pill bar. If the student self-corrects, touch the red X. If a student skips a letter, you leave it blank. And if they skip a row, you also just leave it blank and go on to the next row. We are going to start with some practice. So you should be on this essential training page that looks like this. In the upper right corner, please select K through 6 benchmarks. We are going to be using the K through 6 benchmarks, which has every benchmark measure for every grade. And it's a great place to practice, especially before you administer at beginning, middle, and end of year for those specific benchmark measures. So choose that K through 6 benchmarks. In the middle of the screen, you will choose the grade that we are working with. So for this assessment, you're going to select K for kindergarten in the middle of the screen. We're going to go to the beginning of the year column, and you're going to select LNF benchmark 1. Okay. It's really hard to judge. I know at the beginning it takes a little more time to get where you need to go. So I'm going to wait a little more at the beginning, and then as we go in, not give near as much time for getting into the assessment measure. When you get into this initial screen, you can review rules, and it will make you review the rules. But for today's purposes, if you could choose skip rules in the upper right corner, then you will read the directions as written on the screen. If there are score responses, you would score the student's response to any practice items. So you could see that when you're looking at saying all the sounds in SOAP, which is a phoneme segmentation fluency direction, you would actually score in the bar for that. For letter naming fluency, there's no practice that you need to score, but a number of the other assessment measures do have practice items that you score. And if you score them incorrectly, it will branch to additional directions to have the student practice again. If they're scored correctly, then it will just take you to the next practice item. So for today's purposes, you can put in some incorrect, some correct to just see how that works. When you click begin, the timer does start, except for oral reading fluency. But for all of the other measures that we're going to be practicing, when you click begin, the timer starts. So please do not click begin on the rules on the directions page until I say click begin and the audio will start. If you click begin before you're supposed to, then this is what you can do. You can, if you are on a Chromebook, hit the back arrow on the keys above your, or on the top row of your keyboard, and that will take you out of the practice measure back into just the assessment page where you can select a new assessment. If you are on a browser window for an iPad or for a computer, if you select refresh your screen, it will take you back to the actual assessment page where you can select the correct assessment. Or you just have to wait that minute and you don't practice the measure. So if you need to go back to the measure, you would potentially select that K through 6 benchmarks in the corner. Choose the grade, the time of year, the assessment measure we're doing, which right now is kindergarten, LNF, BOY. You would select skip rules up here in the corner. in the right corner when you see this scoring directions page. And then you would branch through the directions and stop at that begin button. So we're going to go ahead and administer that kindergarten beginning of year letter naming fluency assessment. Select begin.
S J C W E X T T W D F F B Q P Q L C O O R M B V G E B. Say the letter name, not its sound. P Y S M X O K Z A Y.
So when that time ends, you have about 1 second to mark any final items. Then you're going to select next in the upper right corner. You will see the accommodation screen. You're going to want to select no for accommodations. Scroll down to the bottom, select done. And then you will see the scoring screen. So the accurate scoring was 30 letters. And then you can compare your scoring to the scoring on the screen to see if you were accurate within your assessment. Jaden, I'm not sure why. So when you go into the assessment site, right, like you should be able to, oh, it's not going to let me demonstrate this because that's not a touchscreen device.
It just wouldn't let me click the letters. Is it because I'm on a laptop with a mouse?
Oh, yes, it does not work on a laptop with a mouse. You cannot do anything. It has to be a touchscreen device. So either an iPad, a tablet, a Chromebook, or a touchscreen laptop.
Okay. Will our districts provide those? Like I have none of those, not even my own personal.
Yes, they're supposed to provide that.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
a
it
mouse,
wouldn't let me click anywhere on the page.
no, it does not. A
Try.
mouse device does not work, which is why I was like, wait a minute, I can't show you because I would have to click with the mouse because I'm on a presentation screen, not on my touchscreen device.
Okay, no worries. I am so sorry. I've always used my computer and didn't even think about it.
Yes, so for M class you can. For ALO, it does have to be a touchscreen device. And it has to be larger than a phone. So it has to be tablet size or larger. So here's my recommendation. This training will not be very valuable for you because you won't actually get to practice anything. So my recommendation is to talk to your district or charter about getting a touchscreen device and sign up for a different training. Or if you have to, you can still attend today, you just won't get any practice. So you could pretend to score by just like touching your screen but you won't actually be able to check to see if your scoring was accurate or not.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. So ALO decided that you are capturing every item, whether it is correct or incorrect or skipped, rather than just capturing correct items or incorrect items. So they chose to make their platform different with how you actually score the measures. We're going to go into the practice for beginning of year LNF benchmark 1. So select return to training screen in the upper right corner. Then you will select that one circle in the center of the screen. Will be here. You're going to select this one. We're going to I can't remember. Beginning of year for first grade, and we're going to select LNF, which is this first measure. Choose skip rules up here in this corner. You'll see the directions, scroll down, and just stop at that begin button. Press begin.
P R I B O M X P T K Q H F J J U S E Y Q M B D Z I C V U Y R S V X O E L I K N W F H G C T G D W A N A E.
Mark any last final letters. Then you're going to select next in that upper right corner. Select no for accommodations. Scroll down, select done. Then you should see the results screen. So I have put a box around the skipped letter. You will not see that on your screen. It just will not have a check mark or an X. But for ease of the presentation and for checking your scoring, I've put a box around the missing letters or words when we get to oral reading fluency.
So how do we mark that it was a teacher assisted one instead of just marking it wrong?
So, you would just mark it wrong. So it doesn't indicate that the teacher provided the letter. It would be that the student didn't know it. So after that 3-second pause, you mark it incorrect because the teacher provided the answer. So select return to training page. Then you are going to choose kindergarten. So that K, we're doing middle of year. So go to that middle column and select L and F in that middle column. This audio will have the directions as part of the audio. Yes.
Can you say it one more time? We're going to K benchmark
Yeah.
on letter
So
name.
you're going to, let me go back. You're going to select K right here in the middle. And then we're going to the middle of year column, LNF. And if you are not on this page where it has the little grade levels, you need to select this K through 6 benchmarks in the upper right corner.
Okay, now I'm with you. Okay.
So you'll need to select that K through 6 benchmarks, then you will see the grade levels in the middle. So
Okay.
you'll select that kindergarten, go to that middle of year column, LNF.
Thank you.
Yes. Starting the audio with the directions.
I'm going to show you some letters. I want you to point to each letter and say its name. Start here, go this way, and say each letter name. Put your finger under the first letter. Ready? Begin. C, R, O, D, Y, G, A, G, O, H, R, V, G, N, X, F, A, D, Z, Z, V, B, T, S, H, K, 1, W, B, F, M, B, U, M, N, S, L.
Select next in that upper corner. Select no for accommodations. Scroll down until you get to that done button, select done, and then check your scoring.
So when she said she said something wrong at M and N, and then she corrected herself to the M. You just correct it, right? You don't.
Yes,
There's
There-
nothing to mark for.
correct. So there is
Okay.
no currently a self-correct option or indication. So that's something we've actually talked to Acadians about, is adding a self-correct indicator so that you can see when a student has self-corrected that item. But currently, we do not have any indication that the student self-corrected. It's just marked as correct.
And on that first page, when it said no on accommodations, we didn't want to select a little bit lower that her responses had occasional errors.
You could, however, that is captured within the actual scoring for
Okay.
showing that there are occasional errors for the child. Really, when you're looking at those other responses, it's if the student frequently inserts a sound, or if maybe you notice they read a specific letter incorrect every time for letter naming fluency. For looking at some of the other measures, if the student's reading words backwards, or they frequently are skipping words, or they're not ever saying the middle sound and they're only saying the beginning sound or the end sound. Those would be things that you could indicate as patterns of response. If a student is doing things that aren't easily captured within the scoring.
Thank you. Perfect. And that's really what I'm asking is for further testing, you know, but thank you.
Yes, you are very welcome. So as an assessor, there was a question or a comment in the chat about accuracy. So as the assessor, you can be touching in the box as you go along, or you can just swipe your fingers across the bar if the student is going quickly with naming the letters. So you can just make it as a fluid motion. If you are doing it as a fluid motion and swiping across and the student makes an error, you can just go up to the letter, touch that letter, and then go back down and continue across the bar in like a fluid cursive motion. The key is that if you swipe up with a like more curved edge, then you could end up swiping more letters than you're intended. So please make sure as you're swiping up that you're going more like a 90-degree angle or, 80, 75-degree angle up to that letter and then back down and continuing scoring along the rest of that line. Otherwise, you could score additional letters incorrect. So for students who are very fluent, just scrolling along in that bar and sliding your finger versus tapping is going to be a lot faster. We're going to move into first sound fluency. Before I do that, any last questions about letter naming fluency or scoring within that measure? Okay. So for this measure, we're looking at first sounds. So the ideal is that the student just gives you that first sound at the very beginning of the measure, or at the beginning, and gives you that initial sound. However, if the student blends with a consonant or a vowel or a consonant vowel, they can still get partial credit. So they can get 1 point for a mixed phoneme and 2 points for just that first initial phoneme. So you're going to make sure that you are scoring this and showing that the student has blended sounds together by sliding across the bar underneath those blended sounds. If they just gave that first initial sound, you would just tap in that first initial sound pill bar or slide your finger across the bars to show blended sounds that the student made. Sarah, your answer is if the student says L or I for that uppercase I letter, both of those are counted as correct because in a lot of print, that uppercase I without the line on the top and the bottom, right? That also looks like a lowercase L. So either one is considered correct, but the number 1 is considered incorrect because we're just looking at letters here. If a student gives you an incorrect response, you're going to touch the letter and you'll see that little red bar appear. And if they do not give you a response, leave it blank. And you would just say the next word. So you would not score anything if the student does not give you a response for a word. It's blank and you go on to the next word. If they repeat the word, you're going to swipe through all of the letters to indicate that the student just repeated the word, which is not a correct response for first sound fluency. If you need to self-correct, you're going to touch that X above any letter that had previously been marked incorrect. Touch that X and it turns green. If you need to delete responses, so you swiped across the LA and you needed to just touch in the L, you touch the X next to the bar. So when the bar is bolded or wider and darker in color, and it has this X next to it, it can be deleted. So you're just going to touch that X, it will delete, and then you can score it correctly the way that you need to. For activating the next word, and this is very important, the current word appears at the top, and then you are scoring that word. And then the next word appears in this bar underneath it. Touch in that bar to activate the next word. If you just take your finger and scroll up, you could scroll up 2 words or a word and a half, and it's a lot more difficult to get to the correct spot where you need to be to assess that next word. But if you touch in the bar, the screen automatically pulls up the next word exactly where you need it to be to score. So please practice that today. That I personally can't see you. So if you are not doing that, I will not know. But I will tell you that especially when you have fluent students, it's going to cause you problems if you are just trying to slide and scroll your finger to move the screen versus touching in the bar.
Teresa,
Yes.
is there a reason that the F and the T are in the same thing and not separated out?
Yes. So this is first sound fluency. So in order for the student to get credit, they can either do just the L and they get 2 points, or they can do the LA and they get 2 points. If they go into any additional sounds, it is considered incorrect. So for first sound fluency, those last consonant sounds in some of the words are put together, because if the student says either of those sounds, it's going to be considered incorrect for the entire item. When we get to phoneme segmentation fluency, all the phonemes will be segmented correctly, because that's where we're looking for that entire word. Good question. I've had that question before as to why is FT together? Those are different phonemes. And yes, they are, but we're looking at how we actually score first sound fluency, and it's not completely segmented phonemes. Here is just a quick example video of what does it look like. There's no sound in this audio. It's just a visual of like, what does it look like? So quickly review for yourself or discuss with a partner if you're with other people the answers to these questions. Any questions before we move on? So if the student does not respond, we're just going to leave the word blank and say the next word. So no, in this assessment, the assessor is reading the word to the student. So you will hear the entire word read, and then the student is providing the first sound or first blend of sounds. We're going to go to kindergarten, beginning of year. So we're at that first column, FSF benchmark 1. Choose skip rules in the corner. You're going to score the word man. So just click in that M box, select that M box, and then you're going to select next. And you're going to Score the word moon. So you can just select that M. Select next, and then you will see that sun. You're going to select S. Select next, and then stop at the begin button. Select begin.
Left. All. Pine. P. Skirt. Sk. Flag. Foo. Ring. Crow. Crow. Hide. Ha. Blame. Blay. Duck. Duck. Crab. Crab. Bright. Bright. Knock.
When you have everything on the screen correct, or what you think is correct, select next in that upper right corner. You'll note any accommodations as no. Patterns of response, if you feel like there was any, scroll down, select done. And then you will see the score screen. So you'll be comparing that score screen to mine.
Can you explain how blame was scored again?
So the word blame, the student said belay. You can do a consonant blend with a vowel and still get 1 point for that. So you would just swipe across that BLA and they can get 1 point as long as they don't get to those final consonant sounds. Kindergarten, beginning of year, FSF benchmark 1.
Just real quick, we had a
Yes.
question.
Mhm.
What do we do if the student inserts a sound? Do you just ignore that and still mark the sounds that they give you?
So inserted sounds, when they're blended together, are going to be considered incorrect for this measure.
So how would you mark that? Then yeah, how would you?
You would, so for example, sorry. So if inserted sounds does not happen very frequently with first sound fluency, but if a student does insert a sound, you would mark wherever that sound was inserted as incorrect. Schwas are not considered inserted sounds, and you would just ignore a schwa. But an actual inserted sound, so if the student said, sorry, I'm trying to think, trang instead of ring, instead of if they said tra, And then you would mark that as an R, that R as incorrect because they inserted a sound and blended it with that R. And so they gave you the incorrect sound. But we're going to ignore any schwas. So if they're saying the like the student said, full, and they added a in between the L and the F, we're going to ignore that as a schwa. So kindergarten, beginning of year, FSF benchmark 1. Go ahead and scroll through those practice directions, the man, moon, and sun, until you get to that begin screen. Select begin.
Left,
Sorry, it looks like my audio froze. Yes, it did. Okay, well, we're going to let that minute play out.
left.
Oh,
Remember to tell me the
it just decided to start again. But everybody's timer is way past the time. So one of the unfortunate things about technology is sometimes it doesn't work the way we want it to work. So I apologize. There was honestly nothing I could do. It just froze on itself. So your time should be close to being done, or you can hit your back browser button or refresh your screen. It will take you back to the main essential trainings page. You'll have to select K through 6 benchmarks in the upper right corner. Then go back and select K, beginning of year FSF benchmark 1, and we'll try it again and hopefully the audio works this time.
Okay, where are we again? FSF, beginning of
Yes.
year?
Kindergarten, beginning of year FSF. Go through those 3 practice questions. Stop at the begin. Starting the audio. Press begin.
left. Left. Remember to tell me the first sound you hear in the word. Pine. Pie. Skirt. T. Flag. Flag. Rank. R. Remember to tell me the first sound in the word, not the letter name. Crow. Cup. Hide. Hide. Blame. Blame. Remember to tell me the first sound you hear in the word. Deck. Duck. Crab. Cup. Bright. Bruh. Knock. Knock.
Select next in the upper corner. No accommodations. Scroll down. Select done, and then you will see the scoring. If you do not see a score result, it would be because if you had a discontinue, then it would be because you swiped across the entire word for pine and selected PIEN. And then those first 5 responses were all incorrect, which prompts the discontinue rule. So if you don't have score results, that's why. So she did not actually get a point for the T. It's just that that sound was correct. So it was marked as that, but the system knows that there's no point. So if you look on the screen, you will see that there's the 1 or 2 is not circled, but it was a correct sound.
So
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Is this test one where the person administering says laughed and then they give you laugh?
Yes.
And are they're supposed to give you to the vowel? Is that what you're saying? So it should be
The
or-
actual correct fully 2 point is just the first initial phoneme. So you can see on the screen that the crow, that K got 2 points, the D for deck got 2 points, and the K for crab got 2 points. If they combine the initial phoneme with another consonant or a vowel, they only get 1 point.
even though the oh, I see, because they only said k. They didn't say
Correct.
Okay, I gotcha. But the person giving the test is actually saying the word to them and they're
Yes.
repeating back to you just the first sound. Gotcha.
Yes, that.
You're expecting kindergartners to read this? That's crazy.
No.
Okay,
The assessor gives the word.
yeah.
The kindergarten student provides the first initial sound or blend as their answer.
Teresa,
Yes.
what's the discontinue rule on this? Because ours told us like with the D on deck is right, but ours told us that the first 5 sounds were incorrect. And so it gave them a discontinue rule.
Yes. So the first 5 sounds, if they get the first 5 incorrect, it does a discontinue. So if you look at your scoring, you will probably see that you scored the word pine as incorrect as the student said the entire word instead of just pie. And then that would have prompted the discontinue rule.
Okay, so like on crow with the k, that's the 6th one. Is it a discontinue of 5?
It is
Right.
a discontinue at 5.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. Thanks.
Yes. Yeah,
Oh,
so if the
I
student
had
gets the first 5 incorrect, it does discontinue.
So I had everything the same, but on pine, I thought they said pine, not
Yes.
pie. So if they did that, can you invalidate it and just retest it? What
Well,
do you do with that? What do you do with that?
So if you're administering the assessment with the student in that moment, right, not with an audio that just keeps going, and you swiped all the way across on pine, you would want to then delete that response. So you would select that X next to the score bar and rescore it with just PIE. And then it would not have prompted the discontinue rule and you would have continued administering the assessment.
I have a question.
Yes.
How many times can you say, because you said it, I noticed you said it twice. I only want you to tell me the sounds. How many times are you allowed to say that?
So every reminder rule just honestly depends on the different measures. So the reminder rules are different for every single measure as to whether or not you're allowed to say them one time or whether you're allowed to say them multiple times. So for the first sound fluency measure, because it is a kindergarten and then a beginning of first year or beginning of first grade measure, it does allow you to do more prompts than say like oral reading fluency, which the only prompt is keep going. And it doesn't give you very many prompts at all. So when we're looking at first sound fluency, let me pull it up really quick. The reminders. Remember to tell me the first sound you hear in the word as often as needed. Remember to tell me the first sound in the word, not the letter name, is only once. So those two reminders, the one you can say as often as you want or as needed. The other one, when you're really giving them the direction that they're not supposed to say the letter name, can only be used one time. You don't want to give reminders a lot, because that can make it takes up a lot of time, right, for the student. So you'll notice I said, remember to tell me the first sound that you hear in the word after the student had repeated the entire word hide and the entire word blame. I gave that reminder again because they'd just given me 2 incorrect answers where they just repeated the word. So you do want to keep that in mind of like, it's not necessarily the first time that student makes the error. The rules are located in the Cadence Reading Administration Guide. I will drop a link to that in the chat in just a minute. So we're going to do the kindergarten middle of year FSF benchmark 2. Try saying the words with the audio. It does make it harder to score when you are also the one saying the words. So please try saying the words, because as you give this measure to students, you are going to be the one saying the word for the student and then scoring their response and then saying that next word pretty much like right after you've scored. So right after the student's response, you're going to want to give them that next word to give them as many possible opportunities to provide that first initial sound. So kindergarten, middle of year, that middle column, FSF benchmark 2, scroll through those 3 practice items, stop at that begin screen. Again, try saying the words with the audio as you are scoring. Select begin.
Land. Old. Gift. Ga. Snail. Sn. Stove. S. Mild. Stream. S. Pears. P. Flare. F. Peace. P. Sly. S. Plate. P. Think. F. Sweet. S. Life. Ol. Blink. B. Doll. B. Sling. S. Stairs. S. Knees. Peak. P. Cream. Cree.
Okay. I did drop in the chat a link to the assessment manual that has all of the individual scoring rules as well as the reminders. Also, when you are giving a measure, if you don't choose skip rules, it will show you the reminders for that measure before you administer it. Check your scoring, 38 correct sounds. You can be considered an accurate scorer if you're within 1 to 2 points of this score. So if you had between 36 to 40, you can be considered an accurate scorer.
Teresa, have you had anyone ask you about being a little bit behind the student, but then the assessment just stops you and you can't go back and correct some of your scoring? Is there a workaround that? Because that's what we're finding, like we're having a hard time keeping up, or we miss scored and then we want to go back, but now we've run out of time and now we can't even, it just stops it.
Yes, so a couple of things. First of all, with this measure, as the assessor, you are setting the pace of the assessment. So if you're slower, the student just has fewer opportunities to respond. So if you need to correct something and it takes a little bit longer, you're going to say probably one less word for the child. For the audio purposes, the audio does not stop because it just keeps going, even if you need to correct something. So you might want to just skip that correction and keep going with the audio so that you can keep up with the audio. It's also a matter of practice, right? When you become more fluent and familiar with the system and more confident in your scoring, then you will be able to administer the assessment at a faster pace so that you can provide as many opportunities as possible for the student to respond. So you can see that this score is not even a above benchmark score. It's just an at benchmark score. So if you have students above benchmark, you're going to need to be scoring a lot faster and giving those words a lot faster in order to have enough time for the student to respond with enough words to get that above benchmark score.
Right, I can appreciate that one. I guess I'm just looking ahead at the nonsense word fluency piece when kids are going so fast. That's their pace, and then we're having to correct, oh, you said a wrong vowel sound, but I still have to move on, you know, that.
Yes, so I will tell you, nonsense word fluency is the hardest measure to score because there are so many variables as to what students are doing, whether they're giving you segmented sounds, whether they're doing whole words, whether they're mixing them, reading words backwards, or giving you incorrect sounds. It is definitely the hardest to score. It is also the student directs the pace. So if you have a very fast proficient student who is segmenting sounds, that is the very hardest to score. If they're a proficient student reading whole words, it's actually quite easy in comparison to score when they're reading whole words. The segmented sounds is the hardest. That being said, it's a matter of you doing practice to become more proficient with the assessment so that you can correctly score for those fast and proficient students. For today's purposes, it's often better to just, if you make a big mistake, to just skip it and go on. The assessment on that after that time ends only gives you about maybe 1.5 seconds to score that final word. So if you're far behind, you're not going to get in those last words for scoring. You can go back. So if you need to score a word, you can score the final word and then go back to the word before it, and you can fix and change anything before that final word. You just can't add new words after about 1.5 seconds. So Jody, this training site is available for anybody to continue practicing. I'm going to be creating a Canvas course with additional audios it will be available in July, and I'll be sharing that information with assessment directors and literacy directors that they can send out to their people to practice. So it will just have every beginning of year benchmark for practice. And then I'll be doing a new course for middle of year and a new course for end of year, just so people can go in and practice giving those measures right before those benchmark periods. Where do you go to see the scores? If you are on the assessment page, you're going to select next. Then you'll see a page where you'll indicate accommodation, select no, scroll down to the bottom, select done, and then you will see a results page. Cream does get a point because you can blend 2 consonants and then a vowel, as long as you don't do that final sound. So the way it works is if a student if there's 2 consonants at the end, like the word pears, they cannot say any of those final consonant sounds. But you can say beginning consonant sounds blended with a vowel and still get that 1 point. If you go past the vowel, then it's considered incorrect and you do not get any points. But for the most part, the student just gave initial sounds and was definitely at that on benchmark level and is doing well with first sound fluency. We're going to do kindergarten, middle of year again. FSF benchmark 2. Again, try saying the words with the audio. Go through those 3 practice items, stop at the begin screen. Select begin.
Land. Oh. Gift. Get. Snail. S. Stove. S. Mild. Stream. Stra. Pears. Pear. Flare. F. Piece. Pea. Sly. S. Plate. P. Thank. F. Sweet. Swa. Life. Oh. Blank. B. Doll. Da. Sling. S. Stairs. St. Knees. Knee. Peak. P. Cream. Cr. Clang. K. Bag. D. Ride. Fruit. F. Porch. P. Flower. F.
Check your scoring. So this student was at that above benchmark level, just barely, but it was more sounds and more words for the student to respond to. Yes, Anna, if you need to fix something, you're going to click on that little X next to the response, and that will allow you to delete whatever you have there and rescore it. So the X next to the bar is what you're going to change. If you, to completely delete it. If you just need to mark something for self-correct, you're going to touch that X and then that will change to a self-correct. Back real fast to undo. So the way that you undo, you have this bar with this X right here. If you touch that X, it will disappear. And yes, you can fix something after the timer has stopped. You can go back and fix anything after the timer has stopped. You just can't keep scoring new items or the last word after that, like 1 to 1.5 seconds after that timer ends. But you can go back to previous items and fix them.
So Teresa, that answers my question that I had previously about how do we go and fix what we saw, what we heard. So we can go back and
Yes.
fix words that we've already gone through and we may have mismarked them. Okay.
Yes, if you can remember what the correct marking should be, yes, you can go back and fix things after, just don't select next until everything on the screen is the way that you want it to be within those words. So you can scroll through those words and fix anything you want to at that point. Then when everything is the way you want it to be, then you will select next. And after that, you cannot change anything on the scoring. So we're going to go to kindergarten beginning of year FSF benchmark 1. The audio does have the directions in it. So you can just score those directions the way that the audio, the student in the audio responds. Again, try saying the words with the audio so that you can just get practice with going at a faster speed and scoring accurately. So kindergarten, beginning of year, that first column, FSF benchmark 1. I'm starting the audio with the directions.
Listen to me say this word, man. The first sound that you hear in the word man is Listen, man. What is the first sound you hear in the word man? Good. Is the first sound in man. Listen to me say another word, moon. What is the first sound you hear in the word moon? Good. Is the first sound in moon. Let's try another word, sun. S. Good. Now I'm going to say more words. You tell me the first sound you hear in the word. Left. Oh. Pine. P. Skirt. Sk. Flag. Full. Ring. Crow. K. Hide. H. Blame. B. Deck. Deck. Crowd. K. Bright. B. Knock. Trash. Tr. List. Old. Spring. Chief. Ch. Grand. G. Sweat. S. Shelf. S. Herd. H. Crisp. Cr. Plow. P. Hat. H. Sad. S. Swan. Swan.
So this is the chance if you need to fix something that you can. Select next. No for accommodations. for scoring. Any questions about first sound fluency before we move on? We're going to take a 10-minute break. Please come back at 9:45.
Teresa,
Yes.
it was interesting to me on deck, he said duh. And so I like you guys marked it that he said DE. I marked it that he just said the D because it's kind of that schwa. Anyway, what like I was off by one, which I'm just fine. I just wondered what
Yeah,
your
so
recommendation is on that.
I will say with the audio, sometimes it's a little harder to hear what the student actually said versus when you're in person with the student, right? So the student did say "da" and versus and so the and are very, very similar, right? So when we're just listening to that, especially when it's coming through speakers through an audio system, it
Right.
might not be
Well,
super
and
clear.
I'm just asking you, like, if they, are we looking for them to just say duh?
We
Like that,
do,
we're not looking for them to say duh.
the ideal is the student just says "d" and not "duh." But if they say and add that sound as the schwa, it would still be marked correct. So
Okay.
it's a little tricky when the and are very similar to each other, but you're looking, if they said then that would be incorrect because they would have blended the "de" together.
Absolutely. I when I don't teach kinder anymore. I teach first, but I'm very particular about teaching them that it doesn't say duh, it says duh.
Right.
It doesn't say it says right.
Yes.
But if they do it, so many people understand it that way. So if you send them out in the hall with somebody, they're teaching them it says duh. Anyway, I just
Yes.
what your thought was on.
I do think that more students now are learning to not add a schwa to consonants than
Okay.
before because of the letters training that teachers in our state have gone through. Whereas before, that may not have been knowledge that you were like consciously making sure you were not adding a schwa when you were modeling for students, and then also having students practice without a schwa. So I do think that that is going to change within our state, that fewer students will be including schwas when they're doing that first sound or phoneme segmentation fluency.
Okay. Okay, well, thanks for the discussion.
Yes, you're very welcome. So I'm not sure who you are, but iPad 3, your screen keeps freezing. So sorry. It's probably is an internet thing, or also, no, it actually probably isn't an internet thing. What you need to do is log off of the training site and go back into the training site again, because sometimes it just has a little bit of like a issue, but typically people who go back into the training site, I'll put that link there for you again. It fixes it for you and it should stop freezing, hopefully. Was there another question from somebody? Okay. Hey, welcome back. We're going to go into our spooning segmentation fluency now. This measure is wanting students to correctly and completely segment a word. So if we're showing correct segmentation, we would just touch under each letter in that bar to show that the student completely segmented the word. If the student is blending sounds, we're going to want to slide our finger again across those blended sounds across that bar, and then indicate any sounds that were segmented by touching them separately. If a student overlaps those sounds, we're just going to indicate that. So the student says fla, ag, you're going to just swipe across the FLA and then across the AG to show that the student has repeated sounds. If a student inserts sounds when completely segmenting, then we're going to ignore the inserted sound. If a student inserts a sound and blends it with another sound, we would mark that sound as incorrect. You're going to touch the letter for incorrect sounds. And if the student repeats the whole word, slide your finger across all the letters to indicate the whole word was repeated. Omitted sounds are just left blank and you do not score them. For correcting, when you are doing phoneme segmentation fluency, you can only delete the bar that has that X next to it and that is a brighter color, either red or green, and wider. So if you segmented and the student said sa and you touched SA and created a segmented sound instead of a blend, you would need to touch that X next to the A bar, then touch that X next to the S bar, and then you could rescore that item by swiping across the SA together. So you can only delete the top bar that it has the X next to it, or if you need to change something again. Here's just an example video of what it looks like with the scoring. Again, you're going to activate that next word just like you did with first sound fluency by touching in that bar, gray bar with the next word. Again, as we're going throughout, the assessor is going to read the word in the audio, then the student is segmenting the word. The first few will be slower to give you just practice doing the measure, and then it will get faster. And if you are stopping to try and correct errors, it's very easy to get far behind the word. So it's better for our practice session to just leave the word as incorrect and keep going with the audio. When you're administering with the student, obviously we want to have accurate data. So you would need to correct in that moment and then give the next word to the student as you are administering it with students. So we're going to select kindergarten. We're going to that middle of year column, PSF benchmark 2. You're going to scroll through those practice directions. So you're going to indicate how the student scored or said the word soap, if they correctly segmented it. And then you will be at that begin page. Press begin.
Sack. S, a, k. Hole. H, ol. Trip. Tri, ip. Game. Gay, a, aim. Fox. Fa, a, ox. Toes. Toes. Star. S, t, r. Sheep. Sh, e.
Kindergarten. Middle of year, PSF benchmark 2. Go through that practice item SOAP. Stop at the begin screen. Starting, press begin.
Sack. Sa, ack. Hole. Ha, ol. Trip. Tri, ip. Game. Ga, I, m. Fox. Toes. Ta, o. Star. St, air. Sheep. Sh, eep. Pine. Pa, ein. Fourth. Fa, or. Bought. Bought. Which. Wa, itch. Cold. Ca, old. Shout. Sh, ow, ch. Bit. Ba, it. Send. S, e, m. Duck.
Check your scoring. Notice there were some skipped sounds on some of the words, so those should be just left blank. first grade. So you're gonna select that one. Beginning of year, PSF benchmark 1. Try saying the words with the audio this time to practice that skill. Press begin.
Hall. Ha, all, da. Song. Ong. Count. Cow. Wave. Wa, a, v, Mind. I, d. Mouse. Ow, s. Birds. B, d, z. Moon. O, Noise. Oi, z. Since. Ince. Give. Ga, if, Knee. E, d. Creek. Cree, eek. Foot. Foot. Nice. I, sh. Runs. Ns.
Check your scoring. You might have noticed a pattern of response that the student was inserting sounds. So on your screen, you won't see these letters, but for just the training purposes to show that they were inserting sounds at the end of words. So that could have been if I had been giving this assessment, I would have noted that as a pattern of response for this child.
But it's not wrong.
It's not considered incorrect because there's no way to score inserted sounds, which is why you would want to indicate that in the pattern of response, the student is inserting sounds. And then in the notes, I would have added at the end of words, just to make a note for instructional purposes that they're inserting some sounds at the end of words when they're segmenting. So it is an error in the fact that we don't want to insert sounds when we're segmenting, but we can't capture it within the actual scoring platform itself, which is why we would note that as a pattern of response.
Got it. Thanks.
That's that purpose of that pattern of response is to capture other scoring errors that you can't see within the scoring screen itself. We're going to move to first grade. So please select that 1. Beginning of year, PSF benchmark 1. Off at that begin screen. Select begin.
Home.
All right, looks like my audio froze again. I apologize. Yeah, it did not continue. So you can,
Song.
so weird. It pauses and then it just unpauses itself and keeps going. But that for today's purpose is not helpful.
I have a question about,
Yes.
I have students who will miss that first word and do the 3 seconds. I'm not understanding how I can mark it. Do I just go down to the next one, or is there a way to mark it that they didn't answer at all?
So if they don't say anything at all, you're going to just leave it blank. And that's the indication the student did not give a response. So after 3 seconds, you would then say the next word and leave that first word just completely blank and not put anything in the item itself.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but just you don't wait longer than 3 seconds, and then you just say that next word. So whether they don't say anything at all or they only give you the first sound, then you just wait 3 seconds for them to give the additional sounds and then say that next word. Let's try this audio again. Select first grade, beginning of year, PSF benchmark 1. Scroll through, score that word soap, and get to that begin screen. Press begin.
Home. Song. Count. Out. Wave. Wave. Mind. I. Mouse. Mouse. Birds. Birds. Moon. Moon. Noise. Noise. Since. Since. Give. Give. Knee. Knee. Creek. Creek. Foot. Foot. Nice. Ice. Runs. Uns. Join. Join. Plant. Plant. Main. Have. Have.
Check your scoring.
So notice on song that they left off the ng, they just did the ah. I marked the ng wrong. But they just left it blank. What do you?
Yeah, so it should be left blank. So it was a skipped sound, not an incorrect sound. So skipped sounds are left blank. If the student gave the incorrect sound, then you would touch the letter to show that it was incorrect.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Yes. So Deborah, the reason this one is different, it's just the way that system is. So with M-Class, you do see the sound, and then you can press begin. With ALO, you can't actually see that first word until you press begin. So it does require you to press begin, then say that first word. So it is really just how the system is designed. They were designed by different people and designed differently.
Oh, I don't know if I didn't push begin. I thought I pushed begin at the same time because I was following along, but the computer said 2 more words that I could not mark because it said my time was up.
Okay. It's possible there's just a little bit because of the audio, a little bit difference of when you press begin versus the audio and everything. So I do think there was a little bit of a lag on this audio. So I apologize. Sometimes it just doesn't work exactly as it's supposed to. It didn't completely stop. It was just a little lag. Oh, yes, I'd be happy to give a 3, 2, 1 begin, since it sounds like sometimes there's a little bit of a delay when I first start to speak, which then impacts the audio and the ability to score those final sounds. Happy to do that, Jenica. Hopefully I'll remember. Kindergarten, middle of year PSF. This one will have the directions with the person in the audio. Again, try saying the words with the audio because it does increase the difficulty for just scoring purposes. So kindergarten, middle of year, PSF benchmark 2. Starting the audio with the directions.
We're going to say the sounds and words. Listen to me say all the sounds in the word fan. F, and, n. Listen to the word jump. J, m, p. Your turn. Say all the sounds in soap. S, o, p. Very good, saying all the sounds in soap. I'm going to say more words. I will say the word, and you will say all the sounds in the word. Sack. S, a, k. Hole. H, o, o. Trip. Trip. I, p. Game. G, a, m. Fox. F, ox. Toes. T, o, s. Star. St, r. Sheep. Sh, eep. Pine. P, I, n. Fourth. F, or, th. Fought. F, ought. Which. What, itch. Cold. C, old. Shout. Sh, out. Bit. B, it. Send. S, a, n, d. Would. What, d. Dreamed. Dr, e, md.
Check your scoring. Any questions on phoneme segmentation fluency before we move on? Nonsense word fluency. So when we're doing correct letter sounds in whole words, we're going to just swipe across the bar to indicate that the whole word was read. So Deborah, if they say the correct sounds in segment and then say the whole word, you would show segmented sounds first, and then you would swipe across the bar to show that they then said the whole word. They don't get credit for whole word read, but they do get credit for all of those correct letter sounds. If they insert a sound when reading a whole word that is not considered correct, so you would swipe across the bar and then you will see a little triangle caret symbol appear at the end of that bar in the little gray tab. You would touch that gray tab and then that will show that an inserted sound was made, and you can see that in the scoring that it shows that that little caret symbol has been added and an inserted sound was made. When they're segmenting, if they insert a sound, we're going to ignore inserted sounds when segmenting unless the sound is blended. So the same rule for phoneme segmentation fluency as far as blending sounds or inserting sounds, but when it's a whole word, it is considered incorrect. Incorrect sounds in whole words. So this is where that cursive method can come really in handy, right? We can see that we can just swipe across, starting in the underneath that S in the bar, go up to the U, and then across over in back into the T. So that is just a fluid motion when students are reading whole words to touch the letters that are incorrect. If you score the whole word and need to fix it, you can touch the green part of the bar above the letter that was incorrect. So we can touch that green bar, and that is going to show that that is incorrect now. So if you've just swiped across the bar, touch in the score bar above the letter that is incorrect. If you touch the letter, you will then have a green bar with a red bar above it. And that's really indicating that the student said sut at. And that is not too likely to happen where a student's going to read the entire word correctly and then change and give you an incorrect vowel sound or incorrect consonant sound. So it's important that you don't add additional score bars because it means something different when you're looking at the actual data around how the score response are read. So you want to touch the green part of the bar if the student said that part incorrectly, and the cursive method maybe doesn't work for you very well. And so you want to try, you're going to score incorrect sounds within whole words this way. Either way is okay. Did someone have a question? Okay. To skip a line, if a student skips a row of words, you're just going to touch the next row to activate it and continue scoring. Words or sounds read out of order. If the student is segmenting and they read out of order, you're just going to indicate that by tapping in that bar backwards, right? We'll start with the S, then go to the O, then go to the T. When they're reading out of order and they're reading whole words, you would need to mark that initial and ending sound is incorrect, and that vowel could be left as correct. So you can either swipe it backwards or you can swipe it from Z to D. It doesn't matter which way you swipe it as long as you're marking those letters as incorrect because they were read backwards. To activate that next row of, you need to touch in that gray bar on that next line. The first bar is the one you're scoring. The next line is not active until you've touched into that gray bar. If you have a student who is very fluent, it is helpful to use two hands so that you are using one hand to score and one hand to activate the next line. So as your scoring hand goes from the last word DOS to the first word lav, your other hand can activate the bar so that you can keep up with your fluent students. Here's just a quick example of what it looks like. And you're going to just record exactly what the student says. If they segment sounds, if they blend sounds, if they repeat sounds or words, you're just going to score exactly as they have said it. First grade, end of year, NWF benchmark 3. So move to that 1. We're going to that last column, end of year column, NWF benchmark 3. For this one, for NWF, you're going to see that first SOG is the word you're going to give. Then on the next screen, you'll see begin practice. Select begin practice. Then it's the word MIP, and you will score that word MIP. And then stop at that begin button. Three, two, one, begin.
S, Russ. Ev, Hev. Ab. Id, Zid. Odd. Z, Hez. Toss. O. J. Ill. Till.
Check your scoring. Nonsense word fluency is the hardest assessment to score, and this student was very slow. They were well below benchmark. But we will do the most practices with this measure.
My benchmark 3 started with BIM, not Russ, and my benchmark 2 started with, am I in, oh, I'm in kinder, sorry.
Yes, I was gonna say you're probably in the wrong grade. First grade again. End of year, NWF benchmark 3. So it's the same words. Make sure you're in that first grade. Three, two, one, begin.
A, S, P, E, B, A, B, Z, I, D, O, D, he's, Tosh, well, Udge, tile, S, teak, zich, S, tog.
This one had a lot of mistakes, so check your scoring. You might have noted a pattern of response of long vowels. But the scoring does capture that a lot of those vowel sounds are incorrect. But if you had noted that as a pattern of response that they were using long vowels in place of the regular vowels, or in place of the short vowels, I should say. They're both regular. Questions about scoring. So just a reminder, if you end up with a green bar with a red bar on top of it, that means that you did not score the whole word incorrect sounds correctly. So you need to either be using that cursive method where your finger is in the bar, goes up to the incorrect sound and back down to the bar, or touching that green score bar in the green score bar, touching above that incorrect sound. First grade, end of year again, NWF benchmark 3. 1, begin.
S, ev, ab, z, I, d, lod, h, es, toss, w, a, o, adge, till, v, a, z, t, e, k, tech, z, ick, n, a, s, nas, ta, j, a, g, h, a, b, ick, k, a.
Check your scoring. Move to kindergarten. Middle of year, NWF benchmark 2. Three, two, one, begin.
S, a, t, k, is, s, jow, d, o, s, l, a, v, love, m, uck, v, a, s, fuss, idge, h, e, p, j, a, v, job, hut, jit, jit, lest.
Check your scoring. Notice on that last word, there was an inserted sound, so you should have touched that little caret symbol. And there's a little caret symbol that appears in the bar. Your scoring should match. So it's important that your score for correct letter sounds and whole words read matches, but also that the actual scoring marks themselves also match, because that's going to provide that information as to what is the student doing. So for example, in the word lav, the student correctly segmented it, and then when they blended it, they did the incorrect vowel sound. So you want to be able to capture exactly what the student is saying so that the teacher can best know how to provide interventions and support for that student to improve their score. I will just tell you, this one is difficult. The student is going to segment some words backwards, read some words backwards, and when they're doing it backwards, it's much, much harder to score. So first grade, middle of year, NWF benchmark 2. Three, two, one, begin.
S, A, B, sab, H, E, J, hedge, T, Z, O, A, N, in, nin, B, A, V, bav, N, A, O, now, V, M, bam, if, O, A, P, pom, Z, B, ziv, O, ek, lek, Z, af, zaf, A, V, hov, ak, N, A, J, jan, wid, S, M, A.
So a pattern of response you might have indicated is the students reading backwards. That helps you understand where some of these errors are coming from. And so it's not that they're necessarily doing incorrect sounds, but they're actually reading words backwards.
Can you repeat that one and let us try it again?
Yes, I definitely will. So I typically have people want to repeat this one because it is very difficult to score when the student is reading things backwards, because you're
Well, it
not
flips your
expecting.
brain. You're expecting, and then you're like, wait, where did they go?
Yes.
I jumped a couple of lines and then I was like, oh, wait, they're just doing it backwards. Even though
Yes.
you warned me.
Right. Which is why I did warn you, because not that a student's going to warn you beforehand that they read backwards, right? But if you've at least had some experience with it, you're like, oh, that's what's happening. I know what I need to do. So let's try this one again. First grade, middle of year, NWF benchmark 2. Three, two, one, begin.
S, A, B, sab, H, E, J, hedge, T, Z, O, A, N, nin, B, A, V, bav, N, A, O, now, V, M, bam, if, O, up, pole, Z, B, ziv, O, ek, wek, Z, af, zaf, A, V, hov, ak, N, A, J, jan, wid, S, M, A.
Hopefully you did better this time. Check your scoring.
Well, I did worse this time, but I'm not quite sure how to do the backwards when they say the whole word.
So when they say the whole word, you have two options. You can score starting with the last sound. You touch the letter, then go down into the bar for the vowel, and then go back up and touch the letter. Or you can start with the first letter and score it that way. So
when she did she said the sounds, and then when she said the whole word, she said it backwards. So
correct.
how do you do that one backwards?
Yeah,
The whole
so
word.
that's, I would touch the letter P, go down into the pill bar for the U, and then go back up and touch the letter L. Because touching the letter makes it incorrect.
Okay, so you're going down. I don't quite understand that. So you're scrolling, you're kind of
So-
doing the cursive thing, is what
Yes.
you're saying?
Yep, so
Okay.
you're starting on the letter, going down into the bar in one fluid motion, going back up to the letter.
Okay.
I just touched on the bar itself and it crossed them out.
Yes, so the other way you can do it is to slide your whole finger across the bar and then touch in the green bar above the P and the L. So above the letters that are incorrect. So there's
So
two
if you
potential ways to
swipe
score it.
backwards, if you swipe backwards, it doesn't change the direction of
Correct.
it. Just looks like they read the whole word. Okay, I did that
Yes.
wrong.
Yes.
But
So
if
you
they missed the
actually
letter,
have to touch the letters to indicate those sounds were incorrect. If you just swipe the bar backwards, it just records it as green correct.
And do they don't get any points if they read the sound and then read the word?
Correct.
Okay,
So
they have
doing
to read the word first in order to get a whole word
the
read.
points, yes.
Okay,
The whole word read
Same as
one
before.
time to get the whole word read credit. So Ruth Ann, if you know your scoring is very much not correct, then you would need to invalidate and give it again. Invalidated scores do need to be reported to your assessment director, and then they get reported to me at the state level. I do fully expect to get more invalidations as we start this beginning of year fall benchmark, as people think that they're prepared to give that assessment, and then when they get into the actual measures and are doing it with students, they realize that their scoring is not as accurate as they thought it was. So it's really important to practice so that you can become very proficient at giving the measures, and especially nonsense word fluency. Like I said, it is the hardest measure to administer. So Julianne had a question, why did we change? So a number of years ago, Acadians or Dibbles actually had a split, and they became M class, and then they became Acadians with the ALO. And M class had the rights to give the Acadians measures. And that expired this year. So they no longer had the right to administer that assessment, and they started their own assessment. And it has some different measures than what we were used to with Acadians, and not as many years of research. Because our contracts were up with both the different companies. At the state level, we did what's called an RFP, where we're putting out for people to apply to propose their product for our state language arts reading assessment for our K-3. Acadians, and with the ALO platform, they won that bid, and so it was awarded to them, and everybody is using still the same assessment. So it does allow us to look at that historical data and utilize that historical data with students and at the school and district or charter level. In addition, we have the exact same measures and the exact same cut scores for benchmark measures and for composite score, whereas the other assessments that we had looked at did not have those. So it is, we did have some schools that have been using ALO for a number of years. They felt like that beginning, they were a little rougher. They had some differences in their scoring that wasn't as accurate. And then they figured it out, and they feel like their scoring is just as accurate as before. So it is, you can still administer paper and pencil if that is your LEA's choice, and just input the scores into the system. You won't have the data within the system itself, but like I said, I do expect to see some differences in scoring and some differences just in the amount of invalidations, but that should work itself out. And I'm really just stressing the need to practice, because that's what's going to make the biggest difference, is having assessors who have practiced enough that they are fluent and confident with giving those measures when they start benchmarking students in the fall. So Ruth Ann, there is not an actual report that shows tests that have been invalidated that is within the system itself. You can request that from ALO. If an assessment in ALO is invalidated, the score still shows on the student's profile as invalidated, and you can uninvalidate that if that needs to happen. But ALO can provide a report for you if requested from the LEA or charter level. Let's move to a second grade. Second grade, beginning of year, NWF benchmark 1. So I do understand that moving to a new system can be frustrating, and that's why I really tried to provide as much training as possible and giving people practice and creating Canvas courses and providing as much as possible on my end to support people as they transition over, because the scoring itself, the rules may be the same, but the scoring platform is different and does take some practice to become proficient. So 3, 2, 1, begin.
Dill, catch, us, well, hun, dudge, tech, ba, ball, idge, dag, wudge, k, t, cut, vab, mom, hiv, op, div, wham, sib, sus, ack, that, raw, bick, sub, bell, zidge, tuss.
You probably actually found that one easier to score because most of the time the student was giving a whole word and all you had to do was just swipe your finger across that bar to indicate that that whole word was read. So a fluent student reading whole words is by far the easiest to score on nonsense word fluency.
I keep asking tons of questions, but that time it wouldn't let me go to the next line unless I clicked on the line itself. Will that happen in our phones when, I mean, when we gave it on our phones through M-Class, it seemed like it just gave you one word at a time and you just did the word
You can't actually use a phone with this
anymore.
assessment.
Okay.
Yeah, it does have to be tablet size or larger.
Okay.
In
And then
order to administer.
you
And
do
yes,
have to click on the line.
you do have to activate that next bar. That's why I suggested that you use two hands. One hand for your scoring,
Gotcha.
one hand for activating that next bar. And you can really just, whatever hand is moving, right? You're moving across to that final word, and then you have to move back to the front of the line to score the next word. You can use your other hand and just tap in that next bar to activate it to the top. And it does take some practice and getting used to activating that next bar. Sometimes that's one of the biggest barriers is they just forget to activate and then they're like, why isn't it scoring? Because you have to activate that next bar. So this training, I will be putting it on our USBE assessment YouTube page. And then I will also be sharing the recordings with assessment directors so that they can use that in training their people and send it out as they desire for practice so that we can try to have as accurate scoring as possible. Kindergarten, end of year, NWF benchmark 3. So please make sure you move over to that K button. Three, two, one, begin.
B, I, f, a, v, ob, v, e, f, t, am, e, as, pez, n, if, v, a, b, as, n, a, f, nuff, ya, as, yes, b, a, p, b, z, a, b, k, a, b, cob, s, I, side, l, p, I, v, pive, z, a, k, a,
Check your scoring.
So I was just marking and I was still one or two words behind, but I was going to mark them because she said them But it cut me off, so there's no way we can do that, right?
So you get about 1 to 1.5 seconds after that timer ends to finish that last. So here's my suggestion. If you are a couple of words behind, but you know what the student has said, go and touch the very last word. If you touch in that last word and create a bar in the last word, you can then go back and finish. So for example, if you were on the word piv, and you were
Yeah.
scoring it to pive, right? And
Right.
then the timer's running out, go and touch in go touch the K bar, and then it will allow you to go back and score zum and finish scoring com.
Okay, what do you mean by the K bar?
Or just go touch underneath that K. So somewhere in the word com, go touch in the bar somewhere, so that you have a scoring mark on that word. Because if you have a scoring mark on that word, it will then allow you to adjust it. And actually, you should probably touch that under the M, the bar under the M, in order to be able to score the entire word. So you need to touch the last sound the student says, and then you can go back and add in like the second to last word that the student has said, or the other sounds.
Oh, no, it's not working for me, so.
Yeah, because you won't be able to do it until the next measure. So it's too late at this point. But
so you're saying in that 1 second or 2 seconds that you have, go quickly touch the letter of the
yes,
word you wanted to enter. Okay.
yes. Yeah, you just, the system is looking at the last, it won't let you add additional sounds, but it will let you go in and correct previous sounds.
Okay.
So you just want to go touch that last sound, and then you can go in and fill in whatever else you need to. This one will have the directions with the person in the audio. So we're going back to kindergarten, middle of year, NWF benchmark 2. Starting the audio with the directions.
We're going to read some make-believe words. Listen, this word is sog. The sounds are s, a, g. Your turn. Read this make-believe word. If you can't read the whole word, tell me any sounds you know. Mip. Very good. Ip or mip. I would like you to read more make-believe words. Do your best reading. If you can't read the whole word, tell me any sounds you know. Put your finger under the first word. Ready? Begin. S, a, t, k, I, s, s, j, a, o, d, o, s, o, a, v, a, k, v, a, ij, h, e, p, j, a, v, k, o, u, j, e, t, o, s, o, a, g, im, a, v, v, a, k. Now, h, a, s, ip, v, a, f, f, s, h, a, n, d, a, v, tough, y, a, j, o, x, s, I, j, y, a, k, f, I, f.
That student was well above benchmark. They were quite fast. So segmented students or students who segment quickly are difficult to score, and then students who are making lots of mistakes are difficult to score with nonsense word fluency. Any questions on nonsense word fluency before we move into oral reading fluency? So just overall looking at acronyms, the DORF is the same thing as ORF, oral reading fluency, and the DAYS is the same thing as MAYS. So within the Canadian system, it's called ORF and MAYS, and with M-Class, it was DORF and DAYS. But they're the exact same measures that are using the same passages and administered exactly with the same rules. So with oral reading fluency, we're going to touch or swipe beneath each word read correctly. If a student is fluent, you're going to definitely want to be swiping across that bar. If they're reading word for word, you can just tap underneath the correct letters. So you can see, just like with letter naming fluency, we see green checks for correct words and we'll see red X's for incorrect words. Again, that cursive method of swiping across, going up to the incorrect word and then back down into the bar can be very valuable when a student is reading fluently but makes an error. If a student skips a row, you will touch the next row to activate it and continue scoring. You do have to activate the next line of text, just like within nonsense word fluency. So what the skill of activating that next row in nonsense word fluency carries over into oral reading fluency for activating that next row. There are two options for scoring the Retell in ALO. You will tap the plus or minus for each word the student says that is about what was read. The plus is adding words, the minus is taking words away, or you can use the little circle and sweep your finger clockwise. One tick mark around the circle counts for one word. If you go counterclockwise, it takes words away. Within the oral reading fluency, if a student skips a word, you're also going to leave that word blank. So just like all of the measures before, skipped is left blank. I did not design the system. If I designed the system, I would have combined things from both M-Class and ALO because there's things about both of them that I like. The system does require you to activate each line because it codes each line's text and responses at a time. So I'm sorry, it just becomes a matter of becoming fluent yourself and getting into that habit of activating that next line. And yes, using two hands is very important when you have a very fluent reader to activate that next line. They're not going to completely overhaul their system. So not making it so you don't have to activate the next line would be a major change. I am happy to mention to them that that has been a struggle for people with learning their system, is activating that next line within nonsense word fluency and that the oral reading fluency, whether they change that or not, that is the way the system is designed. They are taking feedback on a few other things, like I mentioned, indicating that a sound or a word has been self-corrected is something that they are definitely discussing internally, because it does provide valuable information as a teacher to look at a word or a sound to know that it was self-corrected versus the student just being able to read it or say it correctly the first time.
So while you're talking about that, I've always wondered why they're asking first graders to read words like busy that are not sound outable. They're not a sight word we're learning. It's just this random anomaly in language, right? Like, and it is in the title. So I was taught that you could tell them, that you could teach them to ask you what the title, you know, to read the title to you. And that can give them a clue, but I don't understand how you pick the passages for the different grades.
So the cadence passages were designed with specific readability measure and levels across the system. So we are going to take a break in about 2 minutes. So if you just hold on for a second, and those readability measures are across the grade level. And then it's also important to realize that all of the benchmark scores and cut scores were created based off those passages themselves. So even if there are words within there that are more unfamiliar for students or more difficult for them to read correctly, that does reflect within those specific benchmark scores for students.
Thank you.
Yes. So quickly, rate rule for Retell. If the student stops or hesitates for 3 seconds, you will see that black bar appear at the top of your screen where it says the system will prompt you to say, "Can you tell me anything more about the story?" And then after providing that first reminder, if the student pauses or gets off track again, the system will prompt you to discontinue the measure. And it will just say, "Thank you, discontinue." And there's a little X that appears in the corner that you will select. Then you will rate the Retell quality of response. And now we're going to take a break. When we come back, we will practice scoring the oral reading fluency. Hey, welcome back. We're gonna finish with our oral reading fluency. So the procedure is you touch begin. The timer begins when you score the first word. So after you touch begin, it will take you to this scoring page. And the timer actually starts when you score the first word as either correct or incorrect in the passage. You'll follow along, mark the students' responses according to the school's scoring rules. I'm just briefly going through the overall process. We haven't started a practice yet. At the end of 1 minute, you will say stop and you will touch next. You would remove the passage from the student and then you would give those retell directions and touch begin. You would score those retell words. Then you will select the X in the right corner when finished. You'll rate the quality of response for that retell. Note any accommodations or patterns of response and select done. This is the process that you go through every time you administer a passage with a retell. Here's just a quick example of what it looks like. Note, skipped words are left blank. Incorrect words are red with the X. Correct words have the green check. You do have to score every word as correct, incorrect, or skipped. We're going to start with 3rd grade passages. So you'll want to select that 3 on your tablet or your device. Beginning of year, first column, choose ORF passage 1. So you may go ahead and select begin. Then you will score that first word with the audio. 3, 2, 1, starting the audio.
As Patrick walked along the path to his new neighbor's house, he tripped over a tree root covered by some spiky leaves. He bent down to see if the leaves had scratched him. It was then that he saw the nest. It was tucked into the leaves with 2 tiny eggs inside. He remembered from his school trip to the nature center that he shouldn't touch it. He looked around for the mother bird. Not seeing her, he quietly backed away and continued down the path.
So you're going to select done in the corner or next. Then you will see the retell screen for the directions for the retell. Select 3, 2, 1, begin the retell.
Patrick saw a nest. Can you tell me anything more about the story? There were eggs inside. I've never seen eggs inside a nest before.
You should see that 5-second pause where it says thank you at the top, select that X. There's a little finger pointing to that X, select that X. Then you will rate the quality of response. Then after you've done that quality of response, you're going to select no accommodations done. Then you should see a score screen. So this student had 81 words correct with 100% accuracy. So there were words sounded out and then recoded. There were words repeated, but those are all ignored within the system. You might have indicated as a pattern of response that they were repeating words. Then for the Retell, it was 8 words with a score of 1. Let's do 3rd grade again, beginning of year or passage 2. Shan, I'm not sure what your question is. Three, two, one, starting the audio.
Many people love eating pizza. Pizza is made using a thin crust, which is covered with tomato sauce and then cheese and then cooked. Often, other toppings are added. You might think that pizza is a type of new food, but people have been eating it for hundreds of years. Most people think pizza comes from Italy. This is part true. The type of pizza that is most common today was first made in the city of Naples. Some of the earliest pizzas thought were made in Greece more than 2,000 years ago. This early pizza was made by traveling armies. After marching all day, the soldiers baked a flatbread on their shields and then covered it with cheese and fruit.
You should be at that Retell screen. Select begin.
People like pizza because it's delicious and it's covered in sauce and cheese and toppings, and people have been eating it for a long time. And people think it comes from Italy, and I think that, but it's only partly true. Pizza was used by soldiers. Can you tell me anything else about the story? They put fruit on it.
You're going to indicate the quality of response. check your scoring. So I did put a box around the word new because that word was skipped. Any questions on scoring? I often get a question about the word Naples. It is a proper noun, but proper nouns can be considered correct as long as the student provided a reasonable pronunciation based on syllables and vowel sounds for that grade level for that child. So this is a third grade student. They should have learned that consonant LE syllable type and that that's where the break would be, which would make the A long A versus napless. Or the student also said napple S and added in an extra vowel sound that doesn't actually even exist in the word. So if you are sliding along and it seems like you're not, it kind of stops, it's probably because the pressure that you're applying with your finger is just changing a little bit. And as you're sliding along, you're like lifting your finger just slightly off the screen, and that changes the pressure. And so then it won't, it stops filling in. For some people, a stylus works a lot better because they feel like they're like kind of writing with it. It also can help with the cursive movement because a stylus is more focused than a finger. So those are just some hints to think about. Skipped words and misread words both result in 0 points. They affect the accuracy score the same. So the student does have to read every single word exactly as it is written to get those points. They also do have to recode words. So if the student segments a word and then like the word shields and then doesn't blend it back together, that is considered an error. Even if they segmented it correctly, it does have to be read as a complete whole word correctly in order to get that correct point.
So what happens if they accidentally add an extra word in?
We ignore inserted words. If it happens frequently, then it would be something that you would indicate as in the patterns of response that they frequently inserted words. You will not see a box on your screen. I did that for ease of scoring purposes comparison so that you can see that word is skipped, because it's a lot harder to see skipped words when the check marks aren't even with each other. So you will not see a box around your skipped words. That's just so that you can compare your scores easier. Instead, it will just be blank. You won't have a check mark or an X above it. So here's the retell. It was 44 words with a score of 3. I did not count the word because it's delicious, or the words because it's delicious, because the text didn't actually talk about pizza being delicious. It was more the students' personal feelings about pizza. And again, the written response here is just for you to think about, why is it a quality of response 3? What words possibly did I include or not include that would have impacted the overall word count for retell? Third grade, beginning of year or passage 3. You should select begin, and then you will start scoring with the audio. So 3, 2, 1, starting audio.
The whole family moved when Nell's mother was asked to transfer to an office in foreign country for a year. Everyone was excited because they thought it would be a splendid adventure. They'd be living in Singapore. Nell loved her new home, which was in the middle of a lovely city, full of people. Walking buses and cars filled the streets, yet beautiful flowers grew everywhere. It seemed lots noisier than Nell's small town. One thing Nell and her family had to get used to was all the rain.
Move over to that Retell screen. 3, 2, 1, select begin.
It's about Nell's family moving, and her mom got transferred, and so they had to move to a different country. And they thought it would be a lot of fun, so they were really excited. And Nell really liked her house. It was in a city, and there were lots of people and cars, but there were lots of beautiful flowers. Can you tell me anything more about the story? I don't remember anything else.
Rate that quality of response. Then check your scoring. Yes, Haley. So if you put a green check and selected a word that they actually had skipped, if you touch that green check, it will turn blank and allow you to see that that student actually skipped the word. Any questions about scoring on this page or this passage? Right. So Haley, you don't want to touch the word. That will change it to a red X. You touch the green check and that will turn it blank. Touching the word indicates it's incorrect, not just skipped. And the reason that matters, although the scoring doesn't change, but when I'm looking at and doing an error analysis as a teacher, a skipped word is different than an incorrect word. And if a student is frequently skipping words, I'm going to utilize different strategies to help improve their fluency versus incorrect words, where I would be looking at what phonics skills does the student not have that I need to teach them in order for them to become a more accurate and fluent reader. And the retell for this was 61 words with a score of 4. I highlighted the main idea statement. It's about, and what is it about? So if the student provides a sentence like it's mostly about, the passage is about, it tells about, it's mainly about, those are all ways to indicate that the student is providing you an actual main idea statement versus just providing details from the passage. So in order to get a 4, students really need to be capturing that as a main idea. We're going to move to first grade. So an acceptable range still is you want to be within words correct 1 to 2 points. For accuracy, it's a little trickier because we're going by percentages. So I wouldn't say like 1 to 2% within accuracy isn't acceptable because that is way outside. But it would be errors. So you would be looking at the number of errors as your comparison. So I would look at the words correct as a comparison with your oral reading fluency. If you're in within 1 to 2 words of that words correct, then your accuracy should also be close enough in range. And Amy, I'm sorry, I don't actually have any 6th grade practice passages, but in that Canvas course that I will be putting up in July, I will have practice passages for every single grade. So this is just a select few sets of passages, not every grade level. Oh, sorry. We're going to move to first grade, end of year, or passage 1. Starting the audio.
Mark and his brother Sam wanted to go to the movies, but they needed money. In the summer, they sold cool drinks, but it was very cold outside. I have an idea, said Sam. We can make hot cocoa, 'cause on so cold day, everyone will want some cocoa to warm them up. Mark loved hot cocoa, but he could not make it.
To that Retell screen. 3, 2, 1, select begin.
There are 2 brothers and they sell cocoa. Can you tell me anything more about the story? No.
Checking your scoring.
On outside, I marked it right because I felt like they did blend it after, they said it after. So I wasn't quite sure why we marked that.
They did not. They actually said outside and they didn't actually blend it back together.
Oh, but if you segment it, you don't give them credit.
Correct. So the word can't be segmented, even though that's a compound word, it can't be segmented. It has to be read, blended as a whole word. And the Retell was 8 with a score of 1. This one. We're going to go to first grade. End of year ORF passage 3. So the all passages will read all, or it will take you through all 3 passages without stopping, like a regular benchmark measure. But because we're doing this as a training, I wanted to look at every passage individually and look at the scoring with that, rather than doing all 3 passages and then seeing the scoring at the very end for all the 3 passages. So that's why we're doing them individually as passage 1, 2, 3. Starting the audio.
4 buckets were filled with fish. Now it was time to take them to the market. Ken helped his father load the buckets onto the family's boat. Ken's family lived on a large island off the coast of Africa. They used the boat to sail to market. Ken jumped in the boat.
Three, two, one, begin the retell.
Ken was with his dad, and they put fish in buckets and put them on their boat, and they got in the boat. Can you tell me anything more about the story? I wish I had a boat and I could go in a boat. That sounds like really fun. And I think that Ken really liked going with his dad.
Rating that quality of response, then looking at that scoring. So 42 words with 81% accuracy. Notice that because this is a first grade passage, the word Africa, even though they said it Africa, was given to them as being correct, because with that first grade understanding of syllable uses and the when you use a long vowel or not, at that first grade level is not super developed yet. So we're going to give them that. It's really important when you are looking at your benchmark passages that beforehand you determine what is a reasonable pronunciation based on phonetic skills, right? The actual sounds that words can, or the sounds that vowels can make, and the syllable types that the student should have been taught. Whether they actually can apply that in the moment is different, but if they've been taught those syllable types, then that should apply within the rules when you're looking at those proper nouns. So for second grade, the word Gavin, I've had a lot of questions. If the student says Gavin, I would absolutely give that to them as a reasonable pronunciation. In fact, that's really the rule when we have an open syllable, that vowel sound should be a long sound and not a short sound. So they're actually applying that phonetically correct. And the Retell was 23 words with a score of 3. That personal connection does not give the student points and counts towards their Retell score.
So can you apply what the negative button is for?
Sorry, the what button?
The negative button on the Retell.
Oh, so for example, if you gave a student a point and didn't realize maybe that they were repeating themselves. So the student says, Ken was with his dad. Ken was with, and then he repeats, Ken was with his dad again, and you start giving points for that Ken was, because you think it's going to be a new idea, and instead the student repeats the same idea, then you would press that minus button to take away those additional words that you gave the student, because repetitions do not count. However, if a student repeats like the word and, because that's a coordinating conjunction that we use to combine ideas, we're going to give them the word and or and.
Okay, so you don't take away words when they start talking about their personal experiences.
You just don't give them points.
Okay.
Correct. So you don't take things
Okay.
away, you just don't give them additional points.
Okay.
Oh, Julianne, unfortunately, there is not a great way to skip an unread word. You have to lift your finger up, and it is the hardest to score, because you do have to take your finger off the screen in order to do that skip for an unread word. I'm sorry, there's not a better way to do it. I have had people who have tried to just mark errors, and it doesn't work, because you can't remember skipped words and everything else is blank. If you're thinking, I'm just going to mark incorrect stuff and go back, you can't, it doesn't work. You really do have to score it as you're going along with the student. So if there's a green check mark, if you touch that green check mark, it will change to blank. So if you were scoring along and realized the student skipped a word, you can go touch that green check mark above the word and it will change to blank. And yes, you could go under the line. You just want to make sure you don't go under far enough to activate the next bar. So if you just slightly went under the bar, that's a great idea. Just make sure you don't go into that next bar, because then the system would activate that next bar. We're going to do this. Actually, we're going to move to a 5th grade passage. So select 5th grade, middle of year, passage 1. Three, two, one, starting the audio.
The boy was 7 years old and starting school for the first time. He was the only son of a poor family who lived in what is now part of Germany. To look at the child, he seemed like an ordinary boy. However, he had an amazing talent in math and science. In fact, he would go on to become one of the most important mathematics in the world. The boy's name was Carl Gauss. He reportedly was able to calculate in his head by the time he was 3 years old. The youngster was good in math that he corrected mistakes that his father made when computing the family budget. Carl also showed his super abilities in math at school. One time, his teacher asked the students to add the list of numbers from 1 to 100. The teacher thought that this would take the students a long time.
Okay, so once that timer goes off, I had moved my finger over to say to his. How can I take that back? Because they didn't say to his.
So you can just click that green check mark and it will
Okay.
change it to blank and
Okay.
show that it's not scored at the end.
Okay, thanks.
Yes. Okay. Head over to that Retell screen. Three, two, one, begin.
It is about a boy who is a super math person. The boy was from Germany and he could calculate math in his head when he was only 3 years old. He would help his dad with the family budget. He was also really good at math in school. Can you tell me anything more about the story? The boy was from a poor family.
And the Retell 56. Yes, Ruth Ann, if you're doing the little wheel for Retell, if you go counterclockwise backwards on the wheel, it will mark things as incorrect. Oh, as they were reading?
Yeah, so when I was, swiping underneath as they were reading and he was going and going and then he would they made a mistake or they went back, I
Mhm.
could go back just backwards and I didn't have to lift my finger or touch the word. I could just go backwards and it marked it wrong and then I just kept going.
I don't think I've ever done that before. Yeah, that doesn't work for skipping. If they've skipped the word, you do have to make sure that you lift your finger off the screen, or if you could swipe underneath the bar, not above it, as long as you don't go down too far. And yes, if they do skip a line of text, it does count against them. It does count, every word in that line counts as an error. So just really quickly, just another statement as far as Retell. The student received a Retell score of 4. That last statement, the boy was from a poor family, was not part of a meaningful sequence. However, before the prompt, the student had given 3 or more details in a meaningful sequence. They provided a main idea. And so after the prompt, they just gave another detail. We don't want to penalize students if they've received a 4 for their quality of response for adding in another detail at the end, because we ask them to provide more information. However, if a student's response changes their score, so they were like at a 1 and they added more details after the prompt, which moved them to a 3 or possibly a 2 or a 3, then we want to give them the credit for that. So we're not going to lower the quality of response after the prompt, but we could increase the quality of response after the prompt. And yes, you do have to remember that to activate that next line. Okay. We are going to move just quickly, briefly talk about the maze assessment. So this maze assessment is administered through the Acadience website. And you will assess ALO, or sorry, choose assess maze. I'm going to show you really quickly what it looks like on the actual system. So if I am on the actual ALO system, this green assess button in the corner is where I'm going to go to assess a student, either a benchmark or a progress monitoring probe. I select this, I can select benchmark, or I can select progress monitoring. I would then select assess maze. I can select the students in my list. I do need to deselect any students that are absent because the system will not start until every student is logged in. So if a student, I see Douglas is absent today and Virginia is absent today, so I'm going to unselect them. Then I choose confirm students. Then I get a student login code. This login code does expire after 40 minutes. So please don't do this at the day before. You get the student login code, and that's the code that students are going to put into their device. You do not need individual logins. They just do a student device login code, and they select their name from the list. So if a student selects the wrong name, then that student's going to disappear, and you'll have to figure out who it is that selected the wrong name and have them go out and re-log back in. This assess button is where you're going to go. If I select this, it's going to tell me that I need to have a supported touchscreen device. But if you are log into the system on your touchscreen device with that app, Progressive Web app installed, then it will launch the students' assessments. You can also choose this to filter for whatever students or groups that you need access to. You can do maze, paper, pencil, and the rest on a touchscreen. Students do not have to have a touchscreen device. They can do it on just a regular Chromebook. They can do it on an iPad. They can do it on a regular computer. They can use a mouse for the maze assessment. It does not need to be touchscreen. It just has to be touchscreen for all of those teacher administered assessments. So once you have given students that code, they go to this ALO student login page, and it's just, if you go to the ALO site, it is in the upper right corner, student login right here, and you just would have students select the student login, they put in the code, and it creates that. Then the assessor reads the directions to the student. The students do the practice part, and then the assessment is scored and sent to the student's profile. Yeah, students can definitely do it in your computer class. And if you did it paper and pencil, teachers could enter it, or administration, whoever you want to could enter in those scores. We do find that it's more accurate when students do it online versus paper and pencil, because there's potential for scoring errors when you administer through paper and pencil. That is it. So thank you for sticking with me and for doing this. Practice does make better. So please make sure you are practicing so that you are going to be confident and competent. Yes, so your IT administration should be providing a app shortcut on any devices. So please complete the form in order to get credit for attending today's session. Katie, the progress monitoring is in the exact same place as the benchmark assessment.
What form do we fill out?
I just put a link in the chat.
Where? I don't have the chat.
I will, in your Zoom call, if you want to just click on chat, that will bring it up and then you can see that form.
And you're Teresa, correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Oh, did I do it right? Right here? Right here. Forms? Okay.
Thank you so much.
You are very welcome.
Teresa, I do have one question about assessing, but it's more about the progress monitoring access. Because we have our reading interventionists do all the progress monitoring for our school, and I just want to make sure that I understand the accessing of the students for progress monitoring. Do they have to go in to each student every single time and select?
So let me show you. If you look at the screen I have up, so what it's
Yeah.
going to look like is students are enrolled in progress monitoring with the measure that they need to take. Then the paraprofessionals can be added into the system and given assessment privileges so they can assess students. You would go click on this green assess button here in the corner, or whoever is doing that. They would select the progress monitoring tab, and then they just select the student's name. So if it's a specific class, they can look up and find that specific class. Oh, that was not a good choice. So they can see these students. Any past due students for progress monitoring appear at the top. And then under that will be students who are not past due, who should be progress monitored for that week. So if they just select that student, it will then bring up any progress monitoring probes or progress monitoring that they have been assigned. And then they would just administer that. So it's actually a lot simpler.
Yeah, that's very helpful because, yeah, just navigating where to access the class and then the students that they're assigned to progress monitor weekly.
Yeah, it's all done just right here. So this little filter button lets you to select the class that they need to see. They apply the filters and all the students who are enrolled in progress monitoring will appear.
Awesome.
Teachers can see what the little details were.
So can other people see the scores of other children that they didn't do in detail?
Only if they have been given access to that student through a group. So somebody else asked, can we make groups? Yes, you can make groups that then you can then allows other teachers or paraprofessionals or special ed teachers to see those students' scores and also to assess them. So groups is a great way to do that.
And we can just do that all on this new website.
Yes, it's all within.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, so teachers do, somebody has to enroll the students in progress monitoring. So that is a requirement.
So with that, Teresa, is it going to require us to do the maze and the ORF, or if like I have third grade, or just one of them for every time we have to progress monitor them?
It's whatever you've enrolled them in. So if you have enrolled them in progress monitoring for oral reading fluency, then that's what you administer. If you've enrolled them also in maze, then you would administer the maze. But you can enroll them at different levels. So you could say, this student being enrolled in oral reading fluency every 2 weeks, and we're doing maze every 4 weeks. But really, I wouldn't be doing both oral reading fluency and maze, because if they need the oral reading fluency progress monitoring, then that's what you should be progress monitoring on instead of just the oral reading fluency in conjunction, because that's definitely a higher skill.
Exactly. And is it gonna allow us to, like, if I have students on like a first grade level, to go back to a first grade level and do the
Yes, you
progress
can.
monitoring?
Yeah,
Okay.
so when you put in the progress monitoring, if you select oral reading fluency passage, then it's asks you to select the level, which means just the grade level. So if you select level 1, you're going to get first grade passages. If you select level 3, you'll get third grade passages.
And is that adjustable through the year as they
Yes,
progress?
it is. So you can unenroll students in a specific progress monitoring and then re-enroll them into something different once they have mastered that prior skill.
Perfect, thanks.
I just put the form back in the chat, and then somebody said they did not receive a link for the math session. It is different. I put Jared Wright's email address in here. Please email Jared if you did not get that link. So for some reason, Midas is not being very good about sending that. Yes, Connie, if you were not able to actually practice, feel free to sign up for a different session throughout the summer. And it does not provide recommendations for specifically to go off level like M-Class may have. When you set up the progress monitoring, you have to determine if that progress monitoring should be off level, which does mean that it gets set up based on the student's needs and aligning with their intervention they're receiving. And you don't have to think about it in the moment as whether or not it should be off level or on level. And then Annalisa said it should be in your Midas account. So if you go in and look at the actual course, there should be a link in there to that Zoom link.